This is a third. This is also a third. And even this is a third. But clearly, these are not all the same interval. To name them more precisely, we need to add another descriptor. The number of an interval is always determined by the staff position of the notes. To put it another way, an A up to a C is always going to be a third, regardless of the sharps, flats, or other accidentals. The quality of the interval is how we distinguish different intervals of the same number. Every interval belongs to one of two categories. Some intervals are considered perfect, such as the unison, fourth, fifth, and octave. Others can be either major or minor, like the second, third, sixth, and seventh. These are two distinct categories. A fifth can be perfect, but it can't be major or minor. A tenth can be major or minor, but there are no perfect tens in music. To determine the quality of an interval, we have to count the half steps, also known as semitones. An octave can be divided into 12 semitones. If I start from C, I don't count C, very important. I start counting from the next note. So C sharp or D flat would be one semitone away from C. If I keep counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I get back to C. So the distance from C to C is 12 semitones, and this is called a perfect octave. Let's start filling in some of the others. I'm always a big fan of finding patterns and formulas rather than memorizing arbitrary information, so a good place to start is all the intervals in a C major scale. If I start from C, a C to itself is a perfect unison, and that's 0 semitones away. Fourths and fifths can also be perfect, so a C to an F is a perfect fourth, and a C to a G is a perfect fifth. Let's count the semitones. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So a perfect fourth is 5 semitones. And a perfect fifth is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 semitones for a perfect fifth. The rest of the intervals in the scale are of the other category, major or minor, rather than perfect. Since this is a major scale, they're all going to be major. C to D is called a major second. That's 0, 1, 2, 2 semitones. C to E is a major third. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 semitones. We already did fourths and fifths, so next up, major sixth. C to A is a major sixth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 semitones for mortal sixths, 9 semitones for major sixths. Finally, major sevenths. C to B is 11 semitones, just 1 semitone short of an octave. Our chart is already looking pretty good, and most of the missing intervals are the minor counterparts of the ones we just talked about. I'm trying to move quickly through all this, so if you're feeling saturated already, try to memorize the formula for how to come up with these intervals so you don't have to memorize anything the brute force way. Speaking of formulas, or patterns, a quick way we can fill in all the minor intervals without having to count anything is through this handy rule. A minor interval is always 1 semitone smaller than the major version. That lets us fill in almost the rest of the chart right away. Major seconds are 2 semitones, so minor seconds are 1. Major thirds are 4, so minor thirds are 3. Major sixths are 9, so minor sixths are 8. And major sevenths are 11, so minor sevenths are 10. Since the major scale is made up of all perfect and major intervals from the tonic, you might think the minor scale would be made up of all perfect and minor intervals. For the most part, you'd be right. The C minor scale has 3 flats, B flat, E flat, and A flat. So it goes like this. As expected, we started with a... major second? Well, that's annoying. Okay, but after that the pattern holds. The third is minor, fourth and fifth are perfect, sixth and seventh are minor, and the octave is perfect. So you just have to remember that the second is major. We filled in all the perfect intervals, all the major intervals, and all the minor intervals, but there's still one empty spot on our chart. I haven't yet introduced the terminology for describing this interval. It's more than a perfect fourth and less than a perfect fifth, but perfect intervals can't be major or minor, so we can't use those terms to describe it. This can be called either an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth, depending on how it's spelled. This interval is also called a tritone, as in 3 tones. we've been talking a lot about semitones, and now's probably a good time to mention 2 semitones make up 1 whole tone. So that's a whole tone. 3 whole tones, or 6 semitones, make up 1 tritone. Tritone. Fourths and fifths are not the only intervals that can be diminished or augmented. In fact, we can use those terms for any other interval, including major or minor intervals. A diminished interval is always smaller by a semitone, and an augmented interval is always bigger by a semitone. If we go back to the examples from the beginning, we can figure out that this one is a minor third because it's got 3 semitones. This one's a major third because it's got 4. And this one is an augmented third because it's got 5, even though it sounds just like a perfect fourth, which also has 5. So just like notes can be spelled differently depending on the accidentals, pairs of notes on the piano can also form different intervals depending on the spelling.